And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato and I'm joined by
Hulk.
Welcome to Stuff for Movie Buffs, and today we're talking
Thor Ragnarok.
All right, perfect. Before we get into that comic book movie, we actually have some other news regarding another comic book movie. So we try to start the podcast off with 2 cents, and what that means is we take a trending topic from this week's news, and we allow you listeners to add your 2 cents to that piece of news. So this week, let me just go ahead and go to the Facebook page as well as the Patreon page. If you're not already following us on Facebook, it's Couch Tomato Films. So look us up and like us. And same thing with Patreon. It's a great way for you to support the podcast and the video. So visit our Patreon and our links in the description. So it'll be Couch Tomato Films on that as well. So this week, we asked some of our listeners to add their 2 cents in regards to Wonder Woman officially becomes the top grossing superhero origin movie of all time.
Wow.
So I asked some folks to share their thoughts. Let me go to the Patreon page first. First up, Lightning Black. And here are his thoughts. It's great that it's the highest grossing origin movie, but I don't know if I would say it's the best, mostly because I don't like how they handled the villain in the final act. So everybody's entitled to their opinion. I also agree with them. I don't think it's the best origin movie of all time, but definitely a good feat. Big Mike from Patreon, he says, I think superhero origin movie is rather a niche category, but it's the 5th overall, which is impressive. I think it was well received because it was something outside the normal Avenger, Batman, Spider-Man cycle. I definitely agree with that as well. So going on to Facebook, Ross Grimes Smith says DC has finally got a win after all these years. Definitely think that adds some kind of a great morale when it comes to the DCEU. So I agree with them. Justin Reese writes, Wonder Woman was the DC movie we all needed. While she was not the first heroine to hit the big screen, this marks the debut of possibly better DC films down the road. They did a lot in Wonder Woman and they failed catastrophically in Superman. I think he means Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, who knows? But I agree with Justin there. Eris from Facebook writes, I'm very happy with this and I don't want to hear the crap about escalation of ticket prices. Sure, ticket prices are up, but films stay in the theater for less time and have more competition. Now there is pressure to get these films streaming, and that didn't exist before. So I guess it's comparing apples to orange, and I agree with her. It's like a different day and age. So if you could, defeat some of those movies in the past who were in the theaters for like 6 months or more, I definitely think that's impressive. So Alexander DeBethia, one of our most prominent supporters on Facebook, writes, that's cool, and I'm happy that DC has a win since I truly want all comic book movies to be good. But I'm waiting 2 weeks till Justice League before I can really get happy. Because this franchise might still need a Flashpoint clean slate. So who knows? And he's right. I mean, it all rests on the shoulders of Justice League. So let's wait and see how they do. But that's their 2 cents for this week. So moving on. Another movie that might break records, yes, no, or maybe so, is this week's film, Thor Ragnarok. So we went and visited theaters to check that out. So a lot of hype surrounding this film. You know, a lot of folks were looking at the site that should not be named scores, and it was sitting at 99 for the longest. So so now it's our chance to see what the hype's about. So moving on to Thor Ragnarok. Let's talk about what we did like in the film, like things that worked. Hulk, I'll let you start it off.
I thought they did a great job with changing the whole tone of Thor. You know what I'm saying? Because before it always had a comedic approach, but this time they really, really honed in on what they wanted to do. Like you could tell, like I think they kind of borrowed from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like it really had like that kind of feel to it. And then right from like the setting, the colors that they use aesthetically, and just right from the opening scene, like you could just tell, like, okay, they really wanted to use Chris Hemsworth as like a vehicle. Like, okay, this guy, he has, good comedic chops. Like he has good comedic timing. So they really wanted to really set that out. And I thought they did a good job of just like implementing new things, like as far as like the Led Zeppelin's immigrant score. I thought that was smart that they did. So it was just like, just little things like that right from the opening scene. Like they really did a good job of changing the whole pace of the franchise.
Yeah, so they had some new additions in this movie as well. When you talk about characters, you got Grandmaster Flash, you got Valkyrie, you got the goddess of death, and I'm missing some folks. So when you look at new additions, what worked well? Like who worked well, I should say.
Well, okay, I thought Valkyrie did a great job. Like I really like I think her name is Tessa Thompson. Like I always like whatever stuff she's in. Like from ever since Creed, like she's always been like a fan of mine. I thought she was a good addition. Hela, I didn't think she did a bad job. I just think
no, we talking about good stuff, man. So
okay.
If you got something negative to say, no. Save it.
No. I'm not gonna knock it.
No backhanded compliments either.
Oh man. Okay. All right. I won't mention.
I knew it was coming, man. I'm trying to be fair.
All right. I won't mention Hela. I'll save that one. Grandmaster was pretty cool. Like Jeff Goldblum. Like he's a veteran. Like he knows how to, he has like his own stick. Like he really like brought that forth with Grandmaster. Trying to think of anybody else new. The Executioner with the Carl Urban. I thought he was okay. Like he was pretty cool.
Did you know he was gonna be in the movie?
I had no idea. Like I totally forgot. Like I think I remember hearing that cast thing, but then for some strange reason I just never thought of it again. And then when I saw him, I was like, oh snap! Like Carl Urban. That's what's up.
And I haven't watched trailers for this movie, so I saw that first trailer and that was it. So he kind of threw me off. I'm like, oh, they got Carl Urban. Mm-hmm. That was a surprise. I already knew about Cate Blanchett. So hold on one sec.
I thought they also. I'll give them props for keeping the cameo a secret because it's so hard to keep stuff a secret nowadays. So
stay on
I thought that was pretty cool.
Best example of a cameo I've seen in a long time. And honestly, I'm trying not to get too much into spoilers talk. So slap yourself on the wrist. But
all right, so my bad.
Yeah, it's fine, man. So I'll bleep that out, but I won't spoil it. But when you watch this movie, then you watch Elton John's role in Kingsman, it shows you Disney is superior in using stars to tap the fourth wall in movies. So I thought that was like a great example of a cameo. It's something that you watch, but it doesn't take over the film. So when we talk about new additions for me, I think Valkyrie is a nice addition to the MCU. And how about a round of applause for interracial couples in Hollywood for 2017, i.e. Lucas and Max on Stranger Things, Thor and Valkyrie, and I'll give an honorable mention to Spider-Man and Liz. So I think she's bad because I find her attractive. I've been watching her career since the beginning, and this is like I've been watching her since she was in this Tyler Perry movie, man. My wife made me watch like a while back, and ever since then, she was in that other movie it turned into a Netflix show. That was actually the first movie review I ever did on YouTube, which was
Dear White People.
Yeah, and Creed was one of my favorite movies, the year that it came out. So I'm glad that Hollywood's paying attention to her, her upbringing. So kudos to her. And I think a lot of people will like her more than they like Jane, because I think that's one of the reasons why, the Thor franchise, nobody liked it, because unfair or not, people didn't like Jane because it reminded them of the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah.
So I think going into this movie, you'll like Valkyrie. Another thing, we see some old faces as well. Loki being one of them. How did you feel about his addition?
No, Loki was being, Hiddleston, like he's always has good comedic chops, like, good timing and all that stuff. And he always has like that rapport, like as far as with the fans. So I'm sure, Marvel fandom loves it. You know what I'm saying? I was never like a big fan of Loki, because I never like got like why he was just, like some, because a lot of times he was more popular than Thor.
Yeah.
But
I think this movie changed that.
Yeah. So to me, I thought he did a good job as well. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like with Thor Dark World where it's just like you could just tell like they were just trying to showcase him. With this one, it was just like he was more complimentary to Chris Hemsworth, which was to me what Marvel failed to do in the other movies. So I thought like, okay, like it returned that balance to where Chris Hemsworth in Thor is actually the main character, and it's just like Loki's just a side character. And I thought they really stressed that out.
And this fleshes out Loki better than any other movie, I believe. When you last see Loki, he's sitting on the throne in the Dark World. I think Loki loves his family. This is what I think. But he's just really selfish in putting his needs before his families. And keep in mind, his family is some of the most unselfish people in the universe, to where they talk about it in this movie to where his dad wanted to be a benevolent leader. Same thing with Thor. He cares about Earth where he's not even from. So I think you're always going to have a conflict where you have selfish desires. And it showcases that, because at the beginning of the movie where we talked about that cameo, Loki just wants to be, God, like with a capital G. It's like, I want people to worship me. The same way they regard my father. I want that, like when I'm not in my old age, but when I'm young and I could actually appreciate it, even though all of those guys are like very old since they're immortal. So I'm like, okay, that explains Loki's character to a degree, to where he's just chasing his own selfish ambition, which we already knew in the Avengers. But in this movie, it's more of a comedic thing, and you kind of see where it doesn't necessarily need to be Asgard. He just wants to be a ruler of something. And I was like, all right, you know what? I could get that and I could appreciate it. So moving on to some of the other supporting cast, you mentioned some of those guys. One name that you left off. So we mentioned Carl Urban's character, the Executioner. We mentioned Grandmaster. Hulk is, a big part of the supporting cast. And I noticed you left his name off. I mean, do you want to save it for this section? Because we're moving on to what we hated about the film. I don't know which side of the fence you're on.
Nah, I guess because I consider him new.
Well, not new. I'm talking about
I've
things
seen
that
him
you
in other
liked
Marvel.
in the movie. So, I mean, I noticed you didn't bring up his name yet. So I'm anxious to see, how did you feel about him in the movie? Is it something to where you liked it or you hated it?
Nah, it was nothing negative. Like actually, like I thought it was smart for them to do that, because I thought it worked well. Because when I first heard about it, I was just like, man, like can't we just have like just a one standalone movie without what I'm saying, no cameos, nothing like that. But this actually worked because it really did still feel like a standalone movie. Like as to other, like with Thor: The Dark World, it felt like they were just trying to do too much into the universe. And same thing with like some other Marvel movies where it just felt like, like I just want this movie to just, what I'm saying, like with these solo characters to have like their own feel to it. And with this one, it actually did, despite having Hulk in there.
And I think a better example you want to bring up, rather than Thor: The Dark World, you're talking about Civil War, because Civil War didn't feel like a Captain America movie. It felt like a Spider-Man movie, an Ant-Man movie, an Iron Man movie. Then it felt like Captain America was the third best character in that movie, if you want to include that, because I just felt like that movie focused so much on Black Panther, so much on Iron Man. I forget to this day that that's not an Avengers movie. So
yeah, like as soon as you mentioned it, I was just like, what? That's not an Avengers movie? And I was like, nope, that's kind of
this is a great example of how you could add people in and they still remain part of that supporting cast. And I just really think it's tough to do that with Iron Man, because Robert Downey Jr., he has such a, I don't know, his fingerprints are all over the MCU. So whenever he steps on the floor, it's his movie. A lot of people thought Iron Man 3, before Iron Man 3 came out, they thought Avengers was just Iron Man 3. So with this one, it does not feel like a Hulk movie. I think they use Hulk well in increments to where it feels like, nah, this is a Thor movie. Make no mistake. This is about Thor. It's his stakes. It's his world. I believe it. And Hulk liked it. I felt like they exaggerated about his powers sometimes. Like, okay, sometimes you could destroy like massive, alien tech, and then sometimes you struggle with the dog. But who knows?
Yeah, even with like even with that fight with Thor, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like
if you want to, you can knock him out.
Yeah,
anytime you want. And I'm just like, and it's funny because Thor didn't have his secret weapon.
No hammer.
But I'm saying he over here knocking knocking Hulk around like it's Bruce Banner. And I'm like, wait, I really don't understand how the physics on this planet work. So I'm gonna let y'all keep that, MCU. Because usually they always add something like, okay, the reason why Hulkbuster was able to hang with them is because, like Banner was trying to be, reserved. Like, I don't want to destroy these people. Banner's still in there. Okay, I guess that's the reason Hulkbuster was able to hang with you, but that's not a good logical excuse. And in this film, it's like, I kind of don't get it right now. I really don't understand, but whatever, I'll let you have it. But from a comedy standpoint, I definitely like him working with Thor, and I want to see more of that in the MCU. So let's move on to things that we hated.
Okay.
You brought up the villain. And we are going to talk about the villain later on, but you feel free to mention it now. How did you feel about the Goddess of Death?
I thought Cate Blanchett did a great job. That's the first thing. I thought it wasn't because like her acting was bad. I just think once again, like I think Marvel missed an opportunity to just fully flesh out a character because I
don't think they need to, but I'm gonna let you go and continue to backhand.
No. Okay, like I thought. Okay, they gave her a great backstory. Talking about the issues she had with Odin and all that stuff, and in a weird way, she was kind of right. Like, because it was just like, okay, you want me to destroy all these, evil planets and evil societies and all that stuff, but then when there's peace, all of a sudden I'm no good. So then you're just gonna send me away? Like, it doesn't make any sense because you've been using me for all these years, and then just because like there's peace and you don't feel like I have a place in this world, you're just gonna banish me. So I was just like, I felt like her anger a little bit because I felt like Odin was kind of wrong for doing that. But
in our world, we call that, there's a word for it, deadbeat fathers, I believe.
Yeah.
When you look at what he did with Loki, stealing them from another parent and then not even showing them if you're going to adopt somebody, you better make sure you have the love in that home to provide to that child. Yeah. But obviously Loki has some issues where he wasn't getting that love when he was a kid. So Odin, I think he really likes to jack up people's childhood on purpose. I don't know what that's about. But you mentioned her as the villain. I think a lot of people might have issues with her as a villain because keep in mind, it's just an ongoing thing with MCU movies to where, okay, your villains are going to suck. However, if you want to be technically honest, she's not the villain in this movie. The true villain in this movie, and they dedicate most of their screen time to that guy, people won't realize this, but it's the Grandmaster. So I didn't realize it till I went home because they didn't spend a lot of time on Asgard. So now I'm thinking that they set up her origin because they want to flesh her out later on. So, but when you look at, okay, what is Thor's major obstacles? It even showed, like, I'm not going to get too much into it, but Thor Ragnarok, it means something in the film and it's almost an inevitable prophecy. So it's nothing Thor could do to really prevent that. And I mean,
that's another thing they should have fleshed out. Sorry to cut you off, but that's another thing they should have fleshed out. Like really go in depth, like with the prophecy, but yeah, go ahead.
But that's the thing. Thor's main, activity on this planet is on the planet that he's on, which is, hey, I just need to get off this planet that I'm on. That's it. That's his main obstacle. So when you look at the biggest thing standing in his way, it's not Cate Blanchett's character, it's the Grandmaster. So I'm like, oh wow, like they did it low key to where Grandmaster works as a supporting character, but when you think of him as the overall villain in this movie, it will not work. So I think people they were tricked a little bit to where now he's a more acceptable villain because people don't realize he's the main villain in this movie. I think Cate, they left her alive, which I'm glad they did because they just kill off a lot of their other villains too soon. And I think that's the reason why Loki's been able to flourish and a lot of these guys suck. It's like, give them a chance to have a longer story arc. And I think that over time, a crowd could warm up to them. The fact that they left her alive, I have a feeling what they're going to do with her. I'll explain it later in the show. But I'm like, I really didn't have any issues with her. She barely had any screen time as is. So I'm like, all right, with the moments that they showed you, I appreciated your backstory enough to where I'm like, hey, you know what? Compared to the other stuff that they've been releasing, the best villain in the Marvel movie in Phase 3 so far, it's been Iron Man or Cap, depending on whether you were on Team Iron Man or Team Cap. So other than that, a lot of people have fallen short. And I guess Falcon was decent too. But
What do you mean,
what are
Vulture?
some other things? Oh, my bad. What did I say?
Falcon.
That kind of shows you that I wasn't in love with the guy. So so Vulture did okay. So what are some other things that you hated?
That was it, really. I'm trying to think what else.
I had one.
Yeah, go ahead.
And don't nitpick. If you don't got anything else, like that's one thing I'll say about me. I only have one with other than the one that I do have. I'm not going to mention any other issues. Comparing this to other Phase 3 movies, I think the stakes are in line with some of the stakes that we've seen in the other movies.
That's true.
However, that's my problem with this movie, and it's my problem with all the Phase 3 movies. Yep. It just feels like if you live in New Jersey or Florida or any state other than New York, you're never really in any true danger in this universe. It's the same situation here. You have gods duking it out, basically. The stakes get higher. They couldn't get any more higher unless you handed them marijuana.
Yep.
Yet, no one's in real danger. Like, they talk about this prophecy, and I'm like, it's not really going to affect them. It's not actually going to affect the rest of the universe.
Nope.
I don't feel like the stakes are that important. And I'm not pointing at this film only. I'm saying like all of the Phase 3, movies had that issue. It's the same thing with Doctor Strange. It's like, I really don't feel like this problem stretches to, outside of the premises of your current city.
Yeah.
And I'm in Florida, so I don't feel, the only time I've ever felt threatened is when Tony took that trip to Miami in Iron Man 3. So that's my only issue with it. Other than that, don't have any issues. I think this may be one of the better films of the MCU Phase 3, and we'll rank it against all of the other Marvel movies. So moving on, comedy. Big part of this movie.
Yeah, huge part.
How did you feel about the Yes, give me some of the highlights and just tell me your overall thoughts about that.
I thought it was smart. Like I mentioned this before. Like I thought it was smart. Like they was just like, okay, we're gonna really focus on comedy. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why it hurt a little bit as far as the stakes, because they focused so much on comedy. But once again, it was hilarious. Like they did a great job because I love like the whole Doctor Strange stuff. I don't want to spoil too much, but I like the fact that when that whole dynamic worked for me. Once again, Hulk, when they're after the fight, whatever, and then like they're in that like his I guess loft or wherever his like that, all those scenes work. Like, him coming out and then he was like, I guess I don't want to spoil too much of him being Hulk being naked, and he was just like, oh, that image is in my brain. Like that was hilarious. Yeah, just little things like that. Like even like from the opening scene, like when him dealing with Salter or whatever his name is, like I thought that was funny. Like just little increments like that. Grandmaster worked as well too.
As soon as they named him Grandmaster, I'm like, this is gonna be a DJ, and they play to that a little bit. The music in this movie works, like it's like
big time.
And you talk about it, reminds you of Guardians of the Galaxy. It reminds me of those 70s cheesies movies, or like Flash Gordon or something. It's like a new school version of that. So I do think with the comedy, most jokes in any MCU movie, right?
Yeah,
I don't have data to back this up, but I think this is the most jokes in any MCU movie. If you want to, compare it to anything, maybe Iron Man 3. I believe Iron Man 3. It wasn't the funniest MCU movie, but it looks like they tried to intentionally, fill up that script with jokes. So from just the RPM standpoint, it's a joke coming at you every, 40 seconds. I do think this is the funniest movie in the MCU, so the critics were right about that part. Once again, not all the jokes work for me, but the jokes are subtle. So if you don't like Marvel films with a lot of humor, most of the punchlines will roll off of you, and it won't get on your nerves. That's what subtle humor does. Out of all of the jokes, though, at least 3 of them, no matter who you are, you'll get a chuckle out of. Like you'll laugh out loud in the theater. And I'm going to name my top 3 favorite jokes. Hulk, if you chime in if you have your top 3 as well. But I think Hulk gave us the most iconic morph scene next to his Avengers. I'm always angry. If you remember that, when Hulk was like, I'm always angry. They do something. The setup is very similar, and you think you're going to get the same thing, but they do something it's going to be iconic. It's going to be one of those morph scenes you see where you're like, I'm going to remember this 2 years from now. So I thought that was amazing. And I won't say too much, but that was like my funniest moment in the movie. Next thing is, I'm going to call it the Hulk smashing scene without spoiling it. But Hulk smash, like Hulk smash at the end. He tries to basically smash something and it almost ruins their plans. You know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I thought the movie was going to go in a whole different direction. And I just thought that was hilarious. And if you notice, 2 out of my top 3 moments deal with the Hulk. So it's like the way they use him in this film, he's more intelligent.
Yep.
So I will say Bruce hasn't been around for the last 2 years. It's mainly he's been in Hulk mode. So I could say that part without spoiling anything, but I felt that was so we get a Hulk that could talk. He could actually have a decent conversation with you. So I think that allowed more rooms for joke. And in the third one, when Valkyrie's when she's introduced and she can't pass a breathalyzer test, and they do something during her introduction. So where that's your first introduction to the character, and it's like you think you're gonna get one person, but you get somebody totally different for the rest of the movie. But I thought the way they introduced her and she kind of like her stumbling, and you'll understand it when you see it. I thought that was pretty funny too, and it was something that I wasn't expecting. Like a lot of the jokes, the setups came, and I was like, all right, I already know that's gonna happen. They're doing the same thing they did in Iron Man 3 where his timing's off with the hammer. I get that. Okay, I already know what they're gonna do with Loki. I get that joke. Yeah, and also the play with Loki, that was hilarious too. I'll put that as an honorable mention. That reminded me of what Joffrey did. What they did about Joffrey and his uncle on Game of Thrones when they were having that play picking at them. So those are my top 3 moments. If you have your top 3 moments, feel free to share.
Nah, I think those are like the funniest ones. Like I can't really come up with anything different. Like I really like the Doctor Strange stuff with like with the umbrella and like him, having to deal with Loki and all that stuff. Like I thought that worked well. There was some other moments where I'm trying to think of where a
lot of funny moments. I mean, yeah, it's just
it's
just one of those movies I probably need to go back and watch again. I will watch again. I definitely think it's like I said, one of the better MCU films. We'll rank them later. So moving on to the villain. Now you could just let it all out. I know you held it in this long. So when we talk about villains, I'm putting plural. So you could just talk about how all of these villains work. Marvel has a problem with villains.
With Hela, like you said, I just think because that was the weird part. Because I was just like, because it felt long, like when he was on that planet. Like
it's the whole movie.
Yeah, I was just like, whoa, he's really on this planet for a minute.
It's setting it up. It's setting her up. Like this movie wasn't supposed to be about her. Like the title's not even talking about her. So with Hela, I think what Marvel did is they realized, and this is funny. Like if you look at the grand scheme picture of the MCU. I think they figured out why their villains outside of Loki suck so much. At this point, if you leave a character in for one film, they can't help but drop the ball. It's just not fair. There's so much going on this universe. You have to come in and establish a character, flesh him out, and then kill him right away. That's the reason why Iron Man has some of the weakest villains, because they always kill off his villains, or and it's like, it's no different than the other MCU movies. Keep in mind, the best villain that we've gotten so far in an MCU movie, it's come out of Thor. So I think they realized, okay, why does Loki work? Well, we kept him around instead of killing him. So I think they've grown accustomed to Loki. It's not a situation where it was love at first sight. It wasn't love at first sight with me. I didn't realize Loki was a thing until like Avengers. I'm like, oh, people actually like him? And then he grew on me after Avengers. So with this, I don't think the goddess of death, Hela, was impressive, but I don't think she was bad either. I don't think she, I don't think she will eventually become, I do think she will eventually become one of the better villains in the MCU. They didn't kill her off like they do most of their villains. So I'm assuming that they have big plans for her. So I'm just going to trust the MCU and realize, okay, well, they kept her around for something. And they took away a meaningful character because I almost spoiled something. But yeah, so I think she might tie in well. Let me know what you think about this. I think she might tie in well with Thanos, because if I don't see them bringing in death the comic book version into this universe. However, you could replace the character of Death with the goddess of Death instead. For the readers of the comic, Death is the source of motivation for Thanos and serves as his significant other. So I think they might actually give that role to Hela.
That would be cool if they did that. Like, I'll be on board for that. And
I always keep saying certain characters, they don't fit in the MCU. You can't really do that. And I thought that about Thanos for the longest. I thought that about Thor. But they always find a way to be like, nope, it'll work. And with this, I'm like, I didn't believe Death would actually be a part of this universe. Because, at the end where he was like, to go against the Avengers is to court Death at the end of Avengers. And I'm like, they're not bringing in Death in this universe. That just doesn't make any sense. Like the Grim Reaper type. No thanks. But when they brought in her, I'm like, you know what? And you don't bring in a big actor like Cate for something small. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm pretty sure she's going to be the one that's all lovey-dovey with Thanos. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil too much, but the way the ending is, like the way they set it up, like for Infinity War, is just like, okay, it's like a direct, you know what I'm saying? Like you're really, like, I guess it's like really the starting point of Infinity War, just the way they set it up. So like it wouldn't be like I wouldn't be shocked if like Hela is used, because just the way they set it up, like it seems like, okay, like this is gonna be the starting off point of Infinity War. And can I mention like I thought it was pretty smart for them to cut off like the Jane Foster, Kat Dennings, and the scientist.
Well, I think if you lose Jane, you're losing all of them. And realize this, because you should have talked about this in the "What Do You Like" section. So they mentioned Jane dumped him at the beginning. And as soon as they did that, I'm like, oh, he has a love interest. He's going to have a love interest with who? I didn't think they would go the Valkyrie route, because I'm so used to her playing younger characters that I'm like, okay, the age difference is different between her and Thor, Chris Hemsworth. But I don't know like how old they are in real life. They're probably a little closer than I think. But these are gods, so all of them are like over 1 million years old anyway. Definitely that's going to be his love interest. I actually think they have more chemistry than him and Jane. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Why wasn't Sif in this movie? Was it a contract issue? Do you know anything about that?
It probably was. I have to look that up, because I remember thinking that, because it just felt so weird. Like it was just like a perfect opportunity for her to be there. Like her, helping, people of Asgard, her trying to get to Heimdall and all that stuff. But none
I thought
of that
was who took the, something happens.
Yeah.
And I thought it was her, but then I was like, oh, she not in.
Yeah, with the
yeah. Wow, just spoil it for everyone. But go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So when it wasn't, I was like, okay, you know what? She's not in this movie. So I'm like, I only watched one trailer. Haven't really been keeping up with the news about this film, but I thought that would have been a perfect opportunity to establish that romance when a lot of the fans wanted that anyway. But I'm not mad at what I got. Like I actually like Valkyrie more than I thought I would, and I'm like, I want to see her as a deeper part of the MCU. And yeah, so speaking of the MCU, let's rank these babies. All right, so this is what we're going to do, Hope. We're going to talk about where does Thor Ragnarok rank against the other MCU films. The thing is, I want you to take your heart out of it. You could explain why you personally like the film, but what we're going to do is poll the audience, and we're really going to try to guess what the average movie-going audience would believe. So this is like opinions aside. This was the best to worst Marvel list, and it's really because of their impact on the MCU. So I'm going to share like, hey, this is where I personally place this movie on my list. However, I believe that, a majority of the, comic book movie loving crowd loves this movie better. So, and we're going to try to come up with some type of list. I know they say opinions are opinions, but you can pretty much book this as fact. And I'm joking, but you guys just feel free to let us know in the comment section. I think the easiest way to do that is go one by one down the list on, hey, is Thor Ragnarok better, less than, or equal to this movie? So first up, and we're going to go in the order of the MCU, obviously. Iron Man, their firstborn. Iron Man versus Thor Ragnarok.
Ooh. It's like the site with that not should be named scores kind of scares you a little bit, but I'm going to say no.
All right. Yeah, so I would say Iron Man is actually, I think when Iron Man came out, a lot of people thought Robert Downey Jr. was going to be nominated, and I think other than Heath Ledger, that's probably one of the more it's a creative take on, a superhero that you've seen in a long time. And since then, every character has been a derivative of Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Tony Stark. Even you could argue Thor, all he's doing is a Robert Downey Jr. impression in this movie. So I think it has the most impact in the MCU. Don't think it's the best film. However, I think it's no question Iron Man is better than Thor Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Incredible Hulk, your favorite movie of all time.
Chill.
I'm joking, but
Thor Ragnarok is better.
I think it's better.
I think that, yeah.
Also, I think this movie gets a lot of hate, which it's not a bad movie.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I just think if people watch it recently, it still holds up. I think Mark Ruffalo's a better Hulk and Bruce Banner, but this movie, I remember liking it at the time. It just didn't do as well as it should have at the box office. So if you ignore the numbers, it's actually a pretty solid movie. So I agree with you on that. I'll say Thor Ragnarok is better than Incredible Hulk. So Iron Man 2.
Oh, Thor Ragnarok, easily.
I think it's Thor Ragnarok. I do think this is another movie that gets more hate than it should, but this is actually one of the most hated movies in the MCU. Once again, I don't understand why. I think they asked Jon Favreau to do a lot, juggle all these characters, which some directors still have an issue doing to this day, juggling characters. So, I just think Thor Ragnarok, more people will like this than they like Iron Man 2 because a lot of people hate Iron Man 2. So Thor, before the movie, this Thor Ragnarok's release, I think it was no question, it was considered the best Thor movie. So Thor versus Thor Ragnarok, what's a better movie?
Thor Ragnarok, again, yeah.
All right, agree with you on there. I just think that they've progressed the characters. Also think that I didn't pay to see Thor in theaters. I saw it on Netflix when they used to do DVD rentals. So I felt like if I would have saw it in theaters, I would have probably hated this movie, but I liked it since I didn't have to pay for it like that. So Captain America First Avenger, another movie I saw in theaters that I wanted my money back, but it wasn't that bad.
Chill.
I know. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't something I should have seen in theaters. So I'm almost telling you how I feel. I think this is a good movie, but I don't, personally, I think Thor Ragnarok's a better film.
Yeah. I obviously like Captain America First Avenger more than you, but I would agree, like the fans, even myself, Thor Ragnarok is better.
And that, to be honest, Captain America First Avenger is a divisive film. Like, it's polarizing. The same amount of people who love it hate it. So, and there's like no in between with that film. So, moving on, Avengers, Thor Ragnarok, your thoughts?
Ooh, Avengers is still number one. Like that, it has a special place in the heart of a lot of fans. Like where it's just like, it's not just like the best MCU, but like the best comic book movie of all time for a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Not for me, but
no, for it is. It's like, okay,
God.
not for you because I know how much you love Christopher Nolan, but what Christopher Nolan did with that trilogy, this movie changed comic book movie making forever. Like, if there is no Days of Future Past without Avengers, there is no Justice League without Avengers. So next to Iron Man, it's the most impactful in the MCU. It beats out Iron Man because it influenced what other studios were doing. I think has some of the most defining moments as well. And definitely, I believe that Avengers I think it's the best movie in the MCU. I don't only think that it's better than Thor Ragnarok. So I agree with you there. Iron Man 3. This may be a difficult decision for you.
Like, clearly, this is a better third movie of a standalone. Like, Thor Ragnarok, just by far, it's not even close.
Yeah, Iron Man 3 is actually one of the most hated films in the MCU. I think it works well as a Christmas movie, but outside of that, it's not that good.
And thank you for that. That's the only way I can watch it now. It's like when I think of it's like, it's okay.
I watch it every December, along with my, Kiss Kiss Bang Bangs and all of those other Christmas movies, A Christmas Story. I'm like, hey, this works as a Christmas movie. It sucks as a comic book film. So that's how I actually tricked myself into liking it. So Thor the Dark World versus Thor Ragnarok.
Ooh, another one. Thor Ragnarok. Thor Dark
Easy.
World is,
I don't think the worst. It's the worst out of the MCU. So I think, and that's when. Hey, true or false? When everybody has the same opinion, is it fact?
Yeah, it should be.
All right, because everybody says this movie sucks. And all right, Winter Soldier versus Thor Ragnarok.
Like, I was watching Winter Soldier the other night. Like, it still holds up. So like Winter Soldier to me is better.
You don't have to be an apologetic about this. I think it's no question. I think
Yeah.
it's leaps and bounds better than Thor Ragnarok. I think it's one of the better comic book movies ever made. And it's probably stuck in the wrong universe, because if you take that movie out the MCU universe, you're competing with Dark Knight and some of these other films.
Yeah.
So I'm like, nah, I thought that was one of their best. It's probably their best made movie from a stylistic and also genre standpoint. And most creative too, but
Yeah.
it's just, it's better than Thor Ragnarok. It's just not better than at least 2 or 3 comic book movies on this current list. And we'll talk about that later. So moving on, Guardians of the Galaxy versus Thor Ragnarok. I really want to hear your opinion on this.
Ooh, this is tough, man.
Remember, you got to keep your own personal feelings out of it, and you got to try to guess for the audience.
All right. Since I'm guessing for the audience, I'm gonna go for Ragnarok, just because the response has been so high. Because it's like
It's you judging that off of a week?
it's like, I don't know. I'm starting to see it.
Because Guardians of the Galaxy,
still,
it came in at like 96 on the site that should not be named too. So, and nobody talks about that movie anymore.
That's what I'm saying. Because it's just like, I don't know. Because it's just like the response has been so good. Like, not just like on the sites not be named. Because I just thought like, okay, maybe the stats a little overbloated. Because to me personally, I don't consider this a 90% movie.
I do actually. All it means is if you talk to 10 people, 9 people will like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you like, okay, if you talk to one person on a scale of 1 to 10, everybody will give it a 9.
Yeah.
If I talk to 10 people, I think 10 people will like this movie. Like I don't see somebody hating this movie. I see them having problems with it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that about other Marvel movies though. That's why I think sometimes that aggregator count is off, because I'm like, nah, if I talk to 10 people, 3 of them are gonna hate this movie. But with Thor Ragnarok, I think you have like 2 or 3 problems wrong with the film, but other than that, I don't think it's enough to hate the film. I agree with the score. Now, leave the score out of it because you can't really use that as a gauge. I think you already gave me your answer technically. You said it sounds like you're leaning towards Thor Ragnarok, but you're just scared to do it. All right. I think Guardians, I think a lot of people will agree, Guardians had more of an impact than Thor Ragnarok will have an impact. Like, Guardians had like wives all over America going back to watch old episodes of Parks and Rec, to where they didn't have the luxury of launching off of a trilogy. Like Thor had Dark World and Thor had Thor. So people already know Chris Hemsworth. You're talking about a film nobody knew, and it's in the conversation as one of the best Marvel movies. I think that's very difficult to do. Like I grew up listening to, the greatest hits of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, like those old school radio stations like Hot 105 in South Florida. So all of the songs on there I knew, but a lot of these kids didn't. And the soundtrack became something that was like, important for a movie. Back then, you remember soundtracks used to be everything, like Bodyguard, Waiting to Excel. You get Babyface to do the soundtrack or something. Boomerang, and I'm just naming a couple of movies, but nobody cares about soundtracks anymore. It's about scores. So it's like this movie bought the soundtrack back. I'm going with Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that in a year, we'll go back to this conversation, but I think a year from watching Guardians of the Galaxy, it was more buzz around it than a year from Thor. And we just don't know yet. But I think a lot of people will agree Guardians of the Galaxy is a better movie than Thor Ragnarok. So,
can I switch? I agree with you.
And all right, and they had an Infinity Stone. Honestly, some of the better movies in the MCU have to have an Infinity Stone to be considered, one of the best. But I'm joking on that. But all right, moving on. One of my favorite movies of the MCU, but it gets a lot of hate. So this is going to be an easy decision for me. Avengers: Age of Ultron versus Thor.
Oh yeah, easy for me. Thor Ragnarok. But I'm with you though. Age of Ultron is not as bad as people thought. I think it was just like weed and fatigue, and it was just like a lot of hate for no reason.
And they hate it more because of Twitter comments. Like I love Joss Whedon, and that's because I love the guy since Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm not even talking about the show. I'm talking about that horrible movie with Luke Perry. And I so I've been following his career since then. And Yeah, so I don't know if I'm biased from that standpoint, but I really didn't have any issues with the movie. But I think it's no question the movie going audience will love Thor Ragnarok more than they love that movie, because a lot of people don't love that movie, they hate it. So Ant-Man,
Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok as well. Remember, a lot of people like this movie. A lot of people love it.
That's
So you
true.
sure?
That's true. But Thor is just, a bigger character. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well, that's not fair. His name is Ant-Man. Boom, boom. All right. Yeah, I agree with you though. Like, I think Thor Ragnarok is a superior film. Civil War.
Once again, it's tough. Okay, this one's tough because I'm trying to think, because a lot of people like Civil War. But I'm still gonna go with Thor Ragnarok. It's tough because, like, me personally, it's easy.
It's a tough
easy.
job.
Yeah, it's easy for me, but
yeah, it's easy for me too. I didn't like Civil War, but when I talk to people, I'm like, nah, it's a good movie. I personally didn't like it because I'm looking for certain things in movies that weren't there. So you're doing two things right now. You're trying to guess for the audience, but you're also putting your feelings aside, and you're looking at both movies and saying, hey, this is a better movie. It had more of an impact on the MCU. And Civil War, regardless of my problems with the film, they introduced so many characters that are going to be controlling factors at the back end of phase 3 as well as phase 4. So it's like, this movie is very impactful. It's a defining moment in the MCU as a whole. I think Civil War is more important and better than Thor Ragnarok. I just don't like the movie. So that's me. So, and we both agree. Civil War. That war was civil as hell, because nobody, I'm talking about nobody was in danger other than the people in that war. So moving on, Doctor Strange.
Thor Ragnarok, but I really like.
It's a close call too for me.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You're right. It is Thor Ragnarok. I love Doctor Strange. It's actually one of my favorite movies in this phase, but so is Thor Ragnarok. But once again, this movie almost gets penalized because same reason I told you that Guardians benefited. They knocked it out of the ballpark. A character you didn't know, and it's his first initial film, and they break records. Doctor Strange really didn't have that impact. So I even though Thor has the luxury of coming off of 2 standalone movies, I definitely think it knocked out its third installment better than Doctor Strange knocked out his first. So moving on to Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And the reason I tell you be careful, because you brought up this when you were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. You said, well, there's so much buzz around the movie right now. There was a lot of buzz around Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Mention that at a get-together or a group chat with your friends. Nobody cares about the movie anymore. Am I the only one that realizes that?
You're not.
So much people were like, it's better than the original. I'm like, it's not. And then 2 weeks after the movie's released, nobody cares about it anymore. Everybody thinks it's garbage. Not garbage, but it's like, it's not as good as people were touting, like, upon initial release. So Guardians of the Galaxy 2 versus Thor Ragnarok.
I'm gonna go with Thor Ragnarok just because, like you said, like the momentum just died. I don't know if it's because of did Wonder Woman come out first or
I don't remember, but that soundtrack wasn't even hitting. Like,
yeah, like
so it's like I'm just like, okay, this is like top 40 playlist 101. You gave me some. You at least gave me some. Discreet. And I don't know, because I'm a music lover, I was able to notice like, oh, they done, dug the bottom of the archive for this one, because I haven't heard this song in a minute. With this one, I'm like, wow, this is kind of like on everybody's playlist. And you put Flashlight at the end instead of in the movie. Come on, man, you guys are tripping. So I just felt like I knew upon watching it my first time, like, this movie's overhyped. Thor Ragnarok isn't. So I think Thor is going to live up to the buzz after a couple weeks in theaters, where Guardians died. And Spider-Man Homecoming, this movie's polarizing. Is it just me, or a lot of people don't like Spider-Man Homecoming?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like it's like you said, like either people really love it or I don't want to say really hate it, but
I didn't
it's just
know
like
that. What did I say the best Spider-Man movie was?
You said it was 2?
I said it was 2. And I thought up to this point, people would not take my reviews too serious, because the idea is 24 reasons so-and-so is equal to so-and-so. it's basically saying, hey, the same reasons you love a movie is the same reason somebody hates it, but vice versa, the same reason somebody hates a movie, it's the same reason you love it. So there's no such thing as a bad movie. And yeah, I did 24 reasons, and I compared Homecoming to the trilogy. Keep in mind, my favorite movie is 2, but I don't think Homecoming is that far off from 2. But that's when I realized a lot of people don't like Homecoming. Like, I'm just like, whoa, I thought people liked this film. But a lot of people in the comment section let me know that, hey, man, this film is, horrible. And I'm like, it's a good movie. To me, I thought it's one of the stronger films in the Phase 3. And if you compare it to Phase 2, Phase 1, it's still a strong film. So I want to hear what you think. Spider-Man Homecoming versus Thor Ragnarok.
Dang, this is tough.
I done scared you into making an answer.
I think I'm gonna lean towards Spider-Man because I think it set up the origin so well, and because of
but it is a Spider-Man origin story.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that. Technically, we've seen that already 3 times because Spider-Man was an origin story. The Amazing Spider-Man was an origin story. Surprisingly, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was another origin story. So it's like, this is like the 4th. Oh, we also got, we didn't really get it in Civil War. But,
I mean, kinda. Yeah, that was like our first.
All right, so this is your fifth origin story in the last 17 years. And so it's like, I don't know. Like, I'm leaning towards Thor Ragnarok, and I kind of tricked you into thinking that. But I think Thor... I knew what I was doing, but I think people are going to agree that Thor Ragnarok is a better film than Spider-Man Homecoming. I like Spider-Man Homecoming, but the difference in that movie is if you watch it a second time, man, nothing happens in that movie. I always say it's a John Hughes film, and it's like a new school version of that. But when you're watching a comic book movie and all you're dealing with is teen drama, it's nice to see one time, but if it's not a movie I could watch like twice a year. It's just like, I try to make my kids watch it. If you're not 13 and older, you're not going to like that movie. Like, so that's where I understand where some of the hate comes from. But I think Thor is one of those movies you could actually watch it a couple of times just off of that Thor versus Hulk scene.
Yeah, that's true. It's just, I don't know. Cause like, I just think about like, cause they introduced the world so well, like with Homecoming. And I feel like it set the tone for, your future movies as well, like with Tom Holland, like, but then again, you were right because they did use him in Civil War, so yeah, I see why Thor Ragnarok would last longer, but I don't know. I still think I'm gonna stick with Homecoming. I'm gonna stick to my guns.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Other than Spider-Man,
mm-hmm.
did we disagree on anything? Because I don't know if you picked Captain America First Avenger over Thor, or did you?
Nah, I didn't do that.
All right.
I'm trying to think. Nah, I don't think we really disagreed with anything.
All right, so that's the only one. But if I had to put,
because I switched my pick with Guardians. Yeah.
So you might have to switch your pick. This is my personal ranking of these lists because we just said what is better. If I had to guess, and what I'll do is I'll put like a poll on the YouTube video to really see. But I bet you I'm gonna get it on the money. If I had to guess what people are gonna vote, I think Avengers is number 1. I think Iron Man is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Winter Soldier is number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might switch 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Guardians is number 4. I think Civil War is number 5. After that, you got Thor Ragnarok. Then Doctor Strange. Then Ant-Man. Ant-Man and Doctor Strange and Thor Ragnarok may switch around. Then you got Spider-Man Homecoming. We'll switch around those because me and you kind of disagree with the order on that.
Yeah.
After that, you got Avengers Age of Ultron. Then Captain America First Avenger. Then Thor. Then Guardians of the Galaxy 2, then Incredible Hulk, then Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, then The Dark World. Iron Man's the biggest character in the MCU, but they're giving him the worst movies.
It's so weird.
Well, and everybody kept pointing the finger at Thor, and I'm like, hey man, y'all better talk to Tony Stark, because his movies ain't doing that. They're not testing well with fans either. So really anxious to hear what you guys think.
No, but remember, they give him credit for Avengers. A lot of people give him a credit for the success of Avengers.
Any movie that he's mentioned in.
Yeah, so.
They mentioned him in this movie. And it's like, in order for your movie to break records, you have to mention Tony Stark. Like Ant-Man, they mentioned him like, this is going to knock this is gonna like make Iron Man suits look like, you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like everybody always mentions him just to mention him. I'm surprised they're not mentioning him in DCEU movies. So that's that. So I'm really anxious to hear what you guys think about this. So feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section or wherever you can find us, Twitter or Facebook, and just rank these babies. And I'm going to put a poll up on, you know, like those YouTube cards. Vote on there too, and just let me know what's the best. It probably won't let you put it in order, but you know, vote for what's the best. But all in all, guys, it's about that time. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Before you leave, if you like what you heard, make sure to share it with a friend on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your podcast. Don't let this be the last time we hear from you or you hear from us. Support the show by becoming a sponsor and visiting us on patreon.com. It'll be www.patreon.com/CouchTomatoFilms. Also, join us next week. Check the show notes out on where to find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Other than that, peace.